So, and this Steven Johnson syndrome, it is caused by the drug. And which drug is that is? I have already discussed. That is atazanavir. Okay. They can ask you this question, atazanavir. Okay. What is the spelling here? Atazanavir. Okay. So that's all you need to understand. And now let us understand a very important concept. That is uh, what exactly is the estrogen. Okay. So let us understand. This is very, very beautiful if you know the concept. Okay. Now, it's written that estrogen is metabolized by CYP3A4, which I've already discussed in the phase 1. In the phase 2, with the help of glucuronide, right? Glucuronidation, that is phase 2. Glucuronidation, right? Now, what happens here? The water soluble form after conjugation is secreted into the intestine. Normal TF of estrogen is increased by enterohepatic circulation, and it's also written that estrogen is reabsorbed from the colon after the intestinal bacteria breaks down the glucuronic acid. Estrogen becomes lipid soluble and is taken out, right? So it's in a female of OCPs. Okay, in the female of OCP, what happens in the female of OCPs? So in the female of OCP, where if antibiotics are given, they kill the gut bacteria. Gut sterilization decreases normal TF of OCPs and OCP failure. Now, now what is it trying to tell us? Okay, now what is it trying to tell us? So I have already say example. Now this is uh, this is a drug. Okay. Now, this is what this is an intestine. You got an estrogen, right? And if you look into this, this is half. Okay, all this intestine it goes and it goes, and you got a liver in this as well. Now, I just want to tell you here. Now, say example, she takes estrogen. Now, this estrogen it goes into the stomach. Then through this enterohepatic circulation, it goes into the liver, right? So in the liver, the phase 1, it is because of CYP3A4. After the phase 1, you got a phase 2 metabolism. In this, you have an enzyme or you have glucuronidation. Okay. Okay. Now, at the end of this phase 2, this estrogen with the glucuronidation, it is a water soluble. Okay, it is water soluble. Now, what happens here is, if you observe carefully, I have taken the section here. Now, this is a section of an intestine. Okay, this is section of intestine. Now, after the liver, after the glucuronidation, this estrogen comes with or it binds with glucuronic acid. Now, what happens here is you have a bacteria present here. Okay, you have a beautiful bacteria which are present here. Beautiful bacteria. Now, what does this bacteria do? This bacteria breaks this bond. Okay, this bacteria breaks the bond, and you can see this glucuronic acid goes out. Okay, and there is only the estrogen is left. Since the estrogen is lipid soluble, right? Since the estrogen is lipid soluble, it is absorbed in the blood, right? After the intestinal bacteria breaks glucuronic acid, this estrogen becomes lipid soluble and it takes up the blood. Now, what happens here is, say example, if this patient has some infection, right, and she is on antibiotics, antibiotics. Now, what does it do? These antibiotics kill the bacteria. Once this antibiotics kill the bacteria, now there is no division of estrogen from the glucuronidase. So what happens? There is no absorption of estrogen into the blood. So it leads to OCP failure. So that's a basic point we need to understand. At the end, we need to understand it decreases the TF, normal TF of OCPs. That's the basic point we need to understand. And next, you can look into this. This is a diagram which tells you. I don't know why this scribbling has happened here, since this is the initial videos. So no issue in that. I'll rectify in the next videos. So you can look into this. You can look into the bacteria which is present here. Okay, this beautiful bacteria. This helps in such. Now, we need to end the session, right? We need to end the session by speaking about the drug interaction. Okay. Now, what is this drug interaction? You have two types of drug interaction. One is enzyme inducers. Next, you have something known as enzyme inhibitors. What do you mean by enzyme inducers? Enzyme inducers are the drug that increases the metabolic activity of an enzyme. Now, you have an examples, right? You have some examples. There are something known as GRAB PPCS, that is, you have something known as griseofulvin. Next, rifampicin, R for rifampicin, A for alcohol, B for benzopyrene, P for phenytoin, one more P for phenobarbital, C for carbamazepine, and you have S for Stephen John's wort. It's a plant derivative. This GRAB PCCS, that is griseofulvin, rifampicin, alcohol, benzopyrene, P for phenytoin, phenobarbital, carbamazepine, Steven Johnson work. These are the examples of enzyme inducers. Now, what does it do is these drugs increases the activity of an enzyme, and that leads to what? That leads to drug failure. How does it lead to the drug failure? Say example, right? Got an example, okay? What are these examples? Now, say example, a patient, she's on OCP, okay? Now, she's taking rifampicin. Now, what happens is this rifampicin, right, induces, means increases the metabolic activity of an enzyme. Which enzyme? CYP. I've already discussed here. CYP 3, right? CYP, you got a 3A4, 3E4, 3A4, okay, sorry, 3A4. Now, the moment it increases the activity of an enzyme, what does it do? It breaks the OCPs. Once it breaks the OCPs, what happens here is the effect of the OCP decreases, so that leads to failure. Now, same in the case of another aspect where you have something known as enzyme inhibitors. Okay, you have got something known as inhibitors. Now, for this also you have some mnemonic where you got something known as quick, QICCK, vegetarian. What is Q? Q for pyridine, I for isoniazid, C for cimetidine, C for ciprofloxacin, K for ketoconazole, V for valproate, E for erythromycin greater than clarithromycin greater than azithromycin, G for grapefruit juice, and D for DEC, diethyl carbamazepine. So you need to understand these drugs like quinine, isoniazid, cimetidine, ciproflox, ketoconazole, valproate, erythromycin greater than clarithromycin greater than azithromycin, grapefruit juice, DEC diethyl carbamazepine. What does it do is these drugs, what does it do? It inhibit the enzyme. Now, say example. Now, a patient, he is on theophylline, right? Theophylline. For such patient, say example, we have given the antibiotic erythromycin, right? You have given erythromycin, you have given clarithromycin, you have given or azithromycin. When you give both the drugs, erythromycin and erythromycin and theophylline, this erythromycin, what does it do? What does it do? It inhibit the enzyme which is responsible for the breakdown of theophylline. Now, what does it do? Once it inhibits the enzyme, so there is the theophylline increases in the blood, and that leads to toxicity, right? That leads to toxicity. That's all it's written that theophylline can cause cardiac arrhythmias when erythromycin is given. There is a high risk of ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, cardiac arrest, and death. So you need to understand before giving antibiotic to the patient who is on already theophylline it itself causes cardiac arrhythmia. It itself causes cardiac arrhythmia. When it causes cardiac arrhythmias, upon it, if you give the drug erythromycin or clarithromycin or azithromycin, these drug increases the level of theophylline in the blood and increases the arrhythmias, and that can lead to death of a patient. Right? Death of a patient. And that's all in this session. That's all in the session. And right. Thank you.